All right. Can everyone hear me back there? We're good? All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be presenting about Apple's iCloud activation lock and some other stuff. So, who am I? If you don't already know me, I'm Steven, also known as iH8sn0w. I'm from Toronto, Ontario, currently 19, and I've been involved with iOS stuff since like 2009, and I'm known for various products such as Rob Ford Snow, Snowbreeze, iReb, iFaith, and Forecast. Some previous talks I gave, if you're interested, 2 years ago I did a talk at JailbreakCon, and it was about SSH blobs and AP tickets. So if you're interested in that, you can just go to that URL and grab that. I did another talk on iOS security a few months ago. I'll probably put that up soon. Anyways, let's get right to it. So, Find My iPhone, right? It all started like back with iOS 3. I think it was included with a Mobile Me subscription kind of service, and I think that was like $99 a year or something like that, and basically you'd get this little add-on for Find My iPhone, and you'd be able to basically find your iPhone if you lost it. But the con to this was that the thief could basically DFU restore, and then that would make your phone basically useless to find again, and then they would just be able to resell it. Not good things. iOS 5 came, and then they made it free for all the devices. Still useless though if it was DFU restored. Big con there. But then it kind of went from one extreme to the other when this happened. So iOS 7 came out, and it introduced the iCloud activation lock. And what this meant was that once the device was paired with an Apple ID by iCloud, and once Find My iPhone was enabled, the restorer could not activate the phone after it was restored by DFU or whatever mode, as when you activate it with Albert, well, when the phone's home, it'll basically check to see if it was paired with Find My iPhone, and then you'll get this screen here. So the pro to this was that the thief can't use the device. That was the main goal and the whole intention for this actual lock. The con, some people actually use this as a reseller scam. Like if you go on eBay and you'll see like this mint condition iPhone 5S or something like that, so, and it's a pretty cheap price, so they'll go ahead and they'll buy it, and then once they get it in the mail, it'll actually be functioning and everything, but then it'll still be paired to their iCloud account, so then they'll remotely lock it. So then afterwards, they'll try to demand more money from the actual person, and then things kind of get complicated. Feuds and stuff like that. And Apple cannot reset the lock. I've heard many stories where people have actually brought in the phone to the Apple Store with the receipt, proof of purchase, proof of address, all this crap, and they have not been able to help them, not even exchange the phone or anything like that. So, kind of odd. Anyways, this all really revolves around Albert. It's Apple's activation server, and it actually sends down the signed activation tickets, and it's responsible for like unlocks, locks, basically every kind of lock you can think of, and it's also responsible for handling push or iMessage tokens for the device. And this is actually how IMEI locks work. So basically, all iPhones are built the same. It's not like there's an assembly line for AT&T and there's an assembly line for T-Mobile. No, that would cost way too much money. So basically, phones are actually programmed either at retail or before they're sent out from Foxconn. If I recall, the CDMA models, though, they're not. You actually get to pick that as soon as you get it from Foxconn. And the actual ones that are programmed, they're programmed with specific requirements that have to meet it. So let's say it's factory unlocked, it would have no requirements. But if it is locked, then basically any activations that were sent to the activation server have to meet those requirements, or else it would not give you an activation ticket. And there could be multiple ones, but if any one of those requirements fails, the activation is basically refused. This is how activations work right now. So the iDevice is going to want to make an activation request to the server. And this will contain information like the SIM's IMSI, ICC ID, the serial number, model, and stuff like that. This is how it worked before iOS 7. It was just really simple. It generated the request. If Albert liked your request and there was nothing wrong with it, it would happily send you an activation ticket to the device, which would then verify it, and then you would either get Signal and then use your phone, basically. So activations worked like this. If you've used tools like Snowbreeze, Ponish Tool, Red Snow, stuff like that, it basically cuts all this out, and it just makes the device think it's activated. And I've heard that this has actually caused battery issues because the device in the background is just always looking for an activation ticket and stuff like that. So stuff like that happens because it doesn't know where an activation record is and it's just confused. So when iOS 7 activations came into effect, the same thing applies, but server-side stuff actually happens. And there's a check that Albert will do, and it'll see if it is paired to a previous device via Find My iPhone on iCloud. And if it is, what it'll do is it'll take this route right here, the HTML page. I can't get my mouse there. Oops. Yeah. So it'll send down like an HTML page, and that HTML page is basically the one that says you must enter your Apple ID and your password for this to continue. And once that is done, it basically releases the Find My iPhone lock, and then it'll send down the activation request a second time, and then the ticket will then be responded with. So we've seen a few client-side attacks. This is the most obvious one. It's probably the most public one too. The iPhone 4 is the only one perceptible to it because it has the Limerain DFU exploit. So all you really got to do is just boot a bootloader that'll strap to a custom RAM disk. And you can either do two things. The most popular one is people have been removing the setup.app, which somehow short circuits to activated. But the most common one that we usually do with like Red Snow or Snowbreeze and stuff like that would be through lockdown.d, where we'd actually, I keep saying we, sorry, but it's just like what everybody seems to do is we patch lockdown.d that'll take routes to just straight to activated instead of going to Albert. So for the client-side attacks, these attacks, because it didn't actually phone home, the phone doesn't have an activation certificate, so it has no clue what carrier it's locked to. So you'll run into issues like no service and stuff like that. This is also why if you've like used tools like Ponish Tool or Snowbreeze and stuff like that, and you activated it and you're an AT&T SIM or something like that, and you're assuming that it's like, I have an AT&T SIM in, and that's what it's locked to. I don't know why it's not working. There's no service. It's because the phone doesn't know that it's locked to AT&T. It just doesn't have a certificate, so it doesn't know what to connect to. So the phone basically functions as an iPod or iPad. There's other client-side attacks that aren't really like successful. I remember back in the betas they were like people found ways to crash the setup.app to run get to the Springboard without having to enter in the developer ID and stuff like that. And then they'd be able to just use the iOS 7 betas, no problem. But I think when the GM came out, they pretty much put their act together, and then if the setup.app crashes, you can't launch any apps, the phone's not activated still, no services will spawn, like services that are required for Userland jailbreaks and stuff like that, like install.d, mobile backup 2, those will refuse to run. It is worth noting though that AFC, the protocol that iTunes uses to sync music and movies and stuff like that, is running all the time, no matter what the activation state is. So there wasn't like an AFC sandbox bug that I think was used in Innovation 7 that can be applied, but there's other series of exploits that you'll need in order to be able to use it on an unactivated device. So as I said, most modern Userland jailbreaks like Innovation 7, they only work on activated devices because of these services, and it's also the reason that there is no Apple TV 3 jailbreak, Mr. Nido TV over there. Yeah, so it's the same reason. Apple TV has very limited services running. It doesn't even have, I think, mobile backup 2. It doesn't spawn, but I do know it has install.d. It just doesn't install any packages because I think it only installs internal Apple TV packages and stuff like that. But yeah. So moving along, server-side attacks are actually more practical, but they're also a little more scary because you're relying on something that's server-side based, so basically that can be patched at any moment in time. And what the gist of it is you're submitting malformed requests to the server that would cause it to take alternative code paths. And we've seen examples of this publicly, which with the SAM unlock, there was a GSX sesh ID, and there was also this TSS bug, which I'll talk about in a minute. So the SAM unlock, it was developed by Espigner, Sam, and it's a really awesome dude. So he was able to basically make this tool that would manipulate activation requests however you wanted. So it was used like, I think back in the 4.x days, so people can achieve true activations where they could use push and iMessage and stuff like that, but still be activated just by manipulating what values it sent to Albert and stuff like that. And I don't know specifically who found the SAM unlock, but basically they were able to spoof the SIM's ICC ID with another IMSI or something like that, and then the server got confused and then went ahead and gave you an activation ticket so you could be activated no problem to any carrier. And I think this was also the one that Gevi was trying to push, but never really got to it. But it got posted publicly before Gevi got a chance to push that out. The other one was the GSX one, where basically Apple has this thing called GSX where it's used for repairs. They have to like document everything, stuff like that. When you go to the Apple Store, it gets submitted into GSX and stuff like that. So basically what it happened with is you would create a GSX account with another code that got out somehow. I don't know how, but it did. And the thing is that once you create an account, it has to be approved by the admin. So the person who's responsible for that code has to approve you. But if you just went to the root of the server, it would like, the URL had a sesh ID that you can grab, and then you could just literally copy that sesh ID and then go to paths that GSX actually had. And then you would be able to use GSX functionality without having to approve the actual account. And several IMEI checkers use this method, I think for millions and millions of IMEIs before Apple actually cracked down and patched this. But yeah, so people were able to just like spawn a JavaScript console via Chrome and then just submit requests with this non-approved GSX account. This other one, I actually posted this hash like I think a week or two, is it 2 weeks? I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And it was actually a TSS bug that Neil and I found while we were Skyping. And what it did was it allowed the TSS to reply back with blobs for iOS versions that were no longer being signed. Essentially, it allowed downgrades. The main goal for this, though, was that I was trying to get it to sign anything. I was just trying to get like just to sign basically my own bootloaders and stuff like that, just so I can dump more stuff that I wanted to. But in the end, it actually got closed, I think in 4 days or something like that. And I kind of blame homework for that, because when I found it with Neil, I was doing homework and I told him I couldn't work on it that much, and I was still like working on essays and stuff like that. So he says to blame homework. So yeah, I kind of agree with him, blame homework. But yeah, it was closed days later, so that's sadly. Anyways, this is how it worked basically. I don't know if you can really see that. So this is what a TSS request would look like. This is what's sent down to gs.apple.com. It's got like different keys for different firmware images for the dictionary. So there's like the Apple logo, the RAM disk, different bootloaders and stuff like that. And this is basically the 7.1 TSS request. So this is the one that Apple's currently signing. Well, if you went to a 7.0.x TSS request and you grabbed, for example, a IBSS key and you stuck it into a 7.1, that works better, yes. Awesome. So yeah, so you can see IBSS is right there. This is for 7.1, right? So when I press this, I basically have now a duplicate of the IBSS key. And what I did is on top of it, I have the 7.0.x IBSS key, and on the bottom, I have the 7.1 IBSS key. The one that's not supposed to be signed is the 7.0, so in a sense, Apple should basically decline this whole request altogether because there's multiple entries. Well, what'll happen is it'll actually respond back with a TSS request for the 7.0.x image, even though it's no longer being signed. And it's actually weird because the order that the objects are actually placed in matter too, because I think you have to place it on the top, otherwise it doesn't work. If it's on the bottom, it doesn't go through. So we managed to find that, got closed. Oh well. Hardware attacks. Where's Jihad at? Right. So the iPhone 4 GSM baseband hasn't been unlocked since the 04.10.01 via Gevi. And there's this neat technique that actually came out, and people are using it to bypass the iCloud activation as well. And I'll tell you why in a sec. So this actually originated from China. And I'm guessing they got tired of waiting for an UltraSNOW update or something like that, or just because some RSIM didn't support it. But they developed a hardware technique to unlock the iPhone 4, and this goes a little something like this. They actually desolder the original factory baseband chip. Yeah. Okay. And then they replace it with a similar chip that has the same chipset that's sold by Infineon. And then this chip, like, they'll flash the baseband and the IMEI to it via, I think it's some tool that Intel makes called Phone Tool. And then you have to also change the serial number in the NAND sysconfig partition, because if you just flash a baseband with a custom IMEI onto it, but the serial number conflicts with it on Albert's side, it'll basically say that this is a mismatch and it won't give you an activation ticket. So what they'll do is they will basically change the IMEI and the serial number to a phone that has a factory unlocked and an iCloud unlocked settings, basically. Yeah. Some noteworthy flaws is the 7.0.x iCloud removal and the disable of the Find My iPhone. This is where you could go into settings, and then I think there was, you delete the description of it or something like that and the password, and then it would log you out of the iCloud account, and it would also disable Find My iPhone. So then people would be able to restore it afterwards. This was only useful though if the thief basically got the device, either knew your PIN or had the device unlocked. 7.1 fixed this, but there is one that is, I think, going around where like it involves the power button, slide to unlock, then the home button or something like that, and then it also disables Find My iPhone. So we're still waiting on a patch for that. And yeah, so the thieves might be able to reset the password before restoring, so that they'll be able to resell the device. But this is only really if they either know your PIN or if your phone's not locked. And there's also another thing to note is a lot of Apple IDs that are paired with the Find My iPhone are actually signed into the Mail.app. So if your phone is like unlocked and you have the Mail.app synced to your Apple ID that is also responsible for Find My iPhone, then they can just do the forget my password, go into your Mail.app, and then reset the password for themselves, and then you'd be locked out. Which brings me to this, which was brute forcing Apple IDs. I didn't think this was pretty common, but it's actually pretty common in some third world countries, where people are actually using dictionaries to brute force an Apple ID. And I have no idea why there's no CAPTCHA after 100 failed attempts or whatever, but it supposedly has a 43% success rate. Yeah, so what should be done is CAPTCHAs should be placed after failed password attempts. They shouldn't echo so much personal information over syslog. So if the device is able to pair with the computer, and it's not like passcode locked, or if it is passcode locked but your computer will pair with it, then you can bring up syslog, and sometimes it'll echo the Apple ID that it's paired with. So that's kind of like an information leak that they're usually responsible for covering up when you're trying to activate it after restoring, because they usually censor it and put asterisks in place. But if you can read it over syslog, you'll basically be able to find their email. And yeah, Apple should also provide much better support for resetting the iCloud activations, because it's basically locking even innocent people out, which I kind of feel bad for them. But the only thing is that the cons are outweighing the pros are outweighing the cons, which is that the thief cannot restore the device and sell it. So at this time, there are currently people that sell iCloud locked devices usually sell them either in the form of a scam or they'll sell them for parts only. Marketing technique, I don't know, because Apple basically doesn't support this. They're not really addressing it that much, but if you get locked out, your natural instinct would be maybe to go buy another iPhone, which in Apple's sense is more money, so I don't really think they care about that. If you purchased an iPhone on eBay that basically didn't say it was iCloud locked, but it is, then you should be filing a PayPal dispute within the 45-day window. Otherwise, yeah, you would not be able to get your money back. So always make sure that you buy from a reliable source or from retail when you buy an iCloud device, just so that you don't get locked out. Rob Fortsnow, do you believe? So far, it's been running since April 1st, where it was like this zip that I put out on April Fool's Day, where it was encrypted with this very sophisticated step of instructions, and at the very last step, it was like you had to use the A5 crypto key, GID key, to grab the final key for the zip. And only one person managed to get it so far, and if you probably already know who that is if you checked my Twitter. If you want to know more about this and the whole concept that revolves around it, speak to me privately afterwards, because I don't really want to address this publicly. Another thing I wanted to mention was there's a lot of questions when I'm releasing a Snowbreeze or iFaith for iOS 7, and I'm kind of on the verge of not releasing a Snowbreeze update for iOS 7 right now because of hacktivations. This is the same reason that SAM isn't updated for iOS 7 right now, and me and Espigner has spoke about this, where basically if we activate the device in a way it could be violating the DMCA that revolves around the iCloud activation lock. So we haven't really been looking into pushing out a tool that'll do hacktivation on like iPhone 4s and stuff like that. But I am looking into pushing an update for iFaith that'll support the iPhone 4 and Apple TV 2 for 7.x firmwares. And yeah, my boring talk is over. Is there any QAs? Should I just pass this wireless mic around? All right.
Any questions, guys? And girls?
I hope not.
Yes. Why did you give away my entire talk in 5 minutes? That wasn't nice.
There was only like maybe 2 lines that were actually your talk. I don't know, you managed to span that out to 30 minutes, but okay.
Anyone else? Oh, sorry.
Thank you for the awesome presentation. I actually learned a lot, as I feel a lot of people here in this room did. One of the things that wasn't covered in this presentation, and I was just curious about, was your relationship with Muscle Nerd. So I know you guys are BFFs on Twitter, and just want you to elaborate on that, and because I do have the conversation here on my iPad, and I'm reading it more and more, and just interested to see what the whole, your thoughts about that.
This question was actually asked 2 years ago too, which is actually pretty funny. I'll give the same response I gave 2 years ago. We have differences, but I try to always stay a neutral relationship with him. I'm always willing to work with him, but there's nothing else I can say more to that. Let's hear your thoughts.
Well, I think he's actually a big guy since he has muscles, right? So I wouldn't want to mess with him.
I don't know. I mean, I thought he was going to be here at JailbreakCon or something.
Yeah. Any more other questions?
No? Is this all just going to be Muscle Nerd questions, or? Question 7. Why do you and Muscle Nerd don't get along?
So how did you find out about that amazing hardware unlock? Because I hadn't even heard of that, and I've heard of most things. That was just awesome.
It's not that popular, and it was really only contained within China for a brief time, but it's actually started being sold underground to Israel. I know they started picking up on that. So I think there is a video that'll show it. I don't think it has that many hits on YouTube, and I don't even think it's called anything in English. But yeah, it's really something. I don't know who the hell figured that out, but I think there was also another one where somebody used a proxy device to do something that with the actual factory one. I don't know 100% about that one, but I've heard about it. It's on some Chinese site that you can buy it. I've never had any intention to buy it anyways, so I'm not a hardware guy.
Any more questions? No, that's it.
We're good? Yeah. All right.